Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2022 Sao Paulo Grand Prix, the penultimate race weekend of the year and F1's final sprint weekend of the season as well. I think I've mentioned this a few times over the years on the channel, but this is easily one of my favourite tracks and favourite races on the calendar. And as is the case every year when Brazil rolls around, I cannot wait for this one. It usually throws up a pretty damn good race too. Enough of all that though, loads to get through with this one as always, so let's kick things off with a look at the track and all the usual stats that follow. So last time out, F1 was in Mexico for a race which saw Max Verstappen take a record 14th victory of the season, but now it's on to Brazil for round 21 of the year. Yes, just 2 to go now. A lap of the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, or Interlagos as I'll call it for the rest of this video, is 4.309 kilometers long. That is just over 2.6 miles if you prefer, and is made up of 15 corners with 71 racing laps scheduled for Sunday. It is also one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar, and it is made up of a mix of some quick sections as well as medium speed sequences of corners, and it is a fairly good track for overtaking, especially down at turns 1 and 4. There will also be 2 DRS zones to help drivers get those moves done, with the first zone running between turns 3 and 4 and the second down that start-finish straight. Both zones, by the way, do have their own detection points, so if a driver is overtaken into turn 1, we could see a fight back at turn 4. I always say this, but it is great to see 2 zones follow each other with their own detection points. It always gives us some great side-by-side action. The race lap record is held by Valtteri Bottas, who posted a 1:10.540 back in 2018. And last year's fastest race lap was a 1:11.010 and was set by Sergio Perez on his way to P4, finishing behind a top 3 of Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas. Hamilton, of course, making his way from the back of the grid to P5 in the sprint, before taking a 5-place engine penalty which dropped him to P10 on the grid for the race proper, but recovered to snatch a victory on Sunday. What a drive, what a race, and what a weekend. And here's an extra little stat for you. 5 drivers are tied for the record of most pole positions at Interlagos, with Ayrton Senna, Mika Hakkinen, Rubens Barrichello, Felipe Massa and Lewis Hamilton each having 3 poles apiece. 5 drivers, 3 poles each. I feel a segue coming on, because if we include the inters and the wets, 5 is the number of tyre compounds available across a race weekend, and 3 is the number of dry tyre compounds available as well. Oh yes, it is tyre talk time. It's everyone's favourite part of the video, really. I know it is. The compounds available for this weekend are once again right down the middle of the Pirelli range, and so they are the hard C2, the medium C3 and the soft C4. Now, because of the higher tyre wear, fairly low pit lane loss time at around 20 seconds excluding stopping, and the fact overtaking is generally easier than at some other tracks, this one does tend to be a 2-stop race. And last year's winning strategy was a 2-stopper, with Lewis Hamilton starting on the mediums before running 2 stints on the hard tyre, with only 3 drivers managing to make it to the end of the race, having made just the 1 stop. And the chances of seeing a safety car at Interlagos are high, with 12 of the last 20 races at the track featuring at least 1. And according to Aston Martin, at least, we've actually seen 10 safety car periods in the last 5 races at Interlagos alone, although that does include the 5 used in the wet race back in 2016. And if you haven't seen that race, by the way, definitely give it a watch. It was pure chaos, and there were some moments of brilliance in there as well. But back to this weekend, potentially opportunities for drivers to make some cheap pit stops on Sunday and perhaps even during the sprint if we do get a safety car. And just a reminder, seeing as it is a sprint weekend, teams will be allocated 12 sets of tyres instead of the usual 13, and only the soft tyre can be used during Friday qualifying unless, obviously, it rains. And on that subject, the weather at Interlagos is often very unpredictable. That's a bit of an understatement, and can vary between hot and sunny and torrential rain, and it can change very quickly as well. And although, yeah, it is pretty tough to predict this far out from the weekend, as it stands at time of recording, rain is expected for this one. On Friday, there is around a 50% chance of rain for most of the afternoon, which means FP1 and qualifying could be affected, but it will be warm with highs of 25 degrees and 21 degrees currently forecast for the first practice session and quali respectively. FP2 is also under threat of a shower with currently a 65% chance of rain and highs of 24 degrees, but that risk of a downpour does fall away in time for the sprint, and the temperatures for that one are forecast to be around 23 degrees for lights out. And on Sunday, it's a similar story, although it will be warmer with temperatures currently expected to be around 26 degrees for the start of the race, and the risk of rain is 67% in time for lights out. As always, though, that is the forecast at time of recording, which, if you're interested, is Wednesday afternoon, and so that could all easily change between now and the weekend. And your schedule for this one is obviously a little bit different to the last few races because things do get mixed up for the sprint. So FP1 will, as always, kick the weekend off on Friday, and that's from 3:30 p.m. GMT, with qualifying taking place on Friday evening from 7 p.m. The second and final practice session is on Saturday at 3:30 p.m, and that's followed by the sprint, which gets going at 7:30 p.m. And it is lights out for the race proper at 6 p.m. on Sunday, and once again, that is in UK time. Now, before I get on to my predictions, there are a few things to note and some stories to go over ahead of the weekend, although I have to say, it's all been a little bit quiet since Mexico, which is always a worry when it comes to F1, so expect several major breaking news stories by the time this video goes out, making this section immediately out of date. But anyway, I've managed to find 3 stories that are somewhat relevant to the weekend. First up, we are still waiting for any official news on who will partner Kevin Magnussen at Haas next season. There are some reports claiming we could hear something this weekend, but others say the decision won't be made until after Brazil. So, to keep it short, nobody knows. So keep an eye out for news on this one, because assuming Logan Sargeant gets his super license, that second seat at Haas is the last one up for grabs. It is widely believed the team is currently trying to choose between Mick Schumacher and Nico Hülkenberg, and despite Gunther Steiner and Gene Haas previously claiming Schumacher would need some points finishes to help him keep hold of that seat, Steiner has since backtracked, saying it's no longer about one race or one lap, it is about what is best for the team in the medium to long term, and quote, "It is not like they said that if Mick scores points now, he has the place or not." Let me know in the comment section down below, if you had the choice of Schumacher or Hülkenberg for Haas in 2023, who would you sign? Max Verstappen has said he does not understand why F1 is adding more sprint races to the calendar for next season and thinks the series should stick to the main race on Sunday. 2023 will see the number of sprints double from 3 to 6, although we don't yet know what tracks they will take place on. But the world champion says that when he does the sprints, the focus is not on the racing and is more about not picking up damage and staying in the top 3 positions. Verstappen says that for him, it's not really a race because you go into the race proper on Sunday knowing there are more points available, and that is where you take the risks, adding, quote, "Everyone is careful because if you are fighting for third and you touch and you drop to last, you know your Sunday is going to be tough. Probably you won't risk it, so that's not really a race." And Lando Norris sort of backed him up to a point, saying he loves the pressure of just having qualifying and one race with nothing in between, but did make the very fair point that sprints are dependent on the track, and if they are held at the right kind of circuits, he doesn't really mind them. And Lewis Hamilton has officially received Brazilian citizenship following a ceremony ahead of this weekend's Grand Prix. Now, this idea was first put forward last November after Hamilton won the Brazilian Grand Prix for a 3rd time and after holding a Brazilian flag aloft on the podium, and the Brit received his honorary citizenship at Brazil's Congress Chamber in Brasilia earlier this week. Hamilton said it was a great honour and, quote, "Now I can finally say I am one of you," before adding, again, quote, "I love Brazil, I have always loved Brazil." The 7-time world champion went on to dedicate the honour to his hero, Ayrton Senna. And I've just checked my press releases. We have some news. Logan Sargeant will be driving in FP2 for Williams on Saturday. Quite a rarity across a sprint weekend. And don't forget, Alex Albon's car, the one he will be driving, will be in Parc Fermé. So clearly this is all about getting him as much mileage as possible towards that super license. At time of recording, there are no other changes for FP1 or FP2, but I'd be surprised if we see many, if any more. Right then, time for some predictions, and as always, please don't take these too seriously. They're just a little bit of fun, but if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And last time out, well, I had an absolute shocker, wrong on quite literally everything, so the less said about that, the better. For this one, I did say in the reaction stream after Mexico that this could be a great shot for Mercedes to take a victory, but James Vowles, the team's strategy director, says that he expects the team to struggle in Brazil compared to how they went in Mexico, and that Ferrari will bounce back. So honestly, I'm not so sure anymore. Plus, when it comes to race pace, Red Bull is, let's be honest, solidly clear of their rivals. And guess what? We have 2 races this weekend. So even if the Red Bulls fail to set the fastest time in qualifying on Friday, they'll have a great chance of recovering during the sprint to start the race from the front, and then probably disappear into the distance and win the Grand Prix as well. Look, I'd love to see things mixed up a little bit, but let's be realistic. There's a serious possibility, and some may even say probability, that Red Bull are going to take the final 2 race wins of the year. Then again, rain could impact things across the weekend. It can be a great leveler. So with all of that in mind, let's assume we do get some rain for qualifying on Friday. I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton setting the fastest lap in qualifying. Perhaps bold, but we know what he can do in the wet, with Max Verstappen alongside him on the front row. But I am going to say the Dutchman goes on to win the sprint on Saturday and the race on Sunday. As for the podium, I'm going with Hamilton P2 for the 3rd weekend in a row and Charles Leclerc for P3. And because he seems to fancy doing it most weekends at the moment, I'll pick George Russell for fastest lap. Behind them, I'm properly excited to see the penultimate chapter in the Alpine versus McLaren saga that has run for much of this season. Just 7 points between the two teams in the battle for 4th in the Constructors. Assuming they sort out their reliability, I'm going to go with Alpine for best of the rest just. And I'll even go as far as to say that both teams will spend much of the race together on track. I can see it being something like Alonso, Norris, Ocon, Ricciardo in a row in the points. Such a great fight and something well worth keeping a close eye on for the rest of the season. There's a lot of money up for grabs there. For my bolder predictions this time, I'm obviously going with Sebastian Vettel for a points finish because I'm desperate for him to finish his career on a high at the final 2 races. Pierre Gasly's got some pretty good form at Interlagos, so I'll go with a Q3 appearance and points for him in the sprint. And with that long run from turn 12 all the way to the first corner, it might be worth keeping a close eye on that slippery Williams. So let's say Alex Albon nicks a top 10 finish on Sunday. That is it for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix preview then, but you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back live shortly after the race on Sunday for the usual reaction stream, but in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like because it really does help the channel out, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.